Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and today we're taking apart the Wii 604. This was a request from a viewer, and I'm going to show you something that I've done. I've taken the little tool that they send with you, and I've put this guy in a tap handle. Not a expensive tap handle either. I went to the local Harbor Freight. I bought the little 3-pack of tap handles for like $7 or something, and it takes the largest one. I'm not sure what size that is. But what we have done is basically made a screwdriver out of it instead of that little bitty thing. It allows you to get some torque onto stuff. So I don't know what's in this one, just like you guys don't. I haven't taken one apart before, so let's get to it. Let's get our pocket clip off first, and that T-handle makes a huge difference in getting these things loose. And I'm going to grab one that doesn't have that on there so that I can, once it's loose, I can spin it out of there. Okay, notice I've taken a little key ring off of this one. Just makes it a little easier to handle. And that's a rather long screw there, but that goes all the way through to the other piece of the body there. And now let's take our pivot screw and get it out of there. And just like all the Wii pivot screws, we got a little screw down in there, and it's in a collar, and there's a lot of Loctite on this one. We'll have to clean that up, get some acetone from out in the shop and clean that up before we put it back together. And that's it. Now, one thing I didn't do, whenever you're dealing with a frame lock or a liner lock, you always want to open the knife, and you should put some tape on the blade, which I'm probably not going to do because, well, I'm just going to live dangerously. And I'm going to push the pivot out. It should allow us to get the blade out of there, and our bearings fell out very nicely. And from here, got some serious pins in there, so it's a matter of getting the knife rocked back and forth until we get it to come loose. I can see the light there. It's starting to come loose, but oh, that was bad. There we go. See what we got here. Wow. That stop pin is in there very tightly. The tolerances, and I've taken apart several of these Wii knives, and guys, the tolerances, wow, they are tight. So anyhow, we have the frame apart, and we might as well take the little lock bar insert off just because we're here. And same thing, I'm going to put pressure against it, and then I'm going to move to the little one and spin it on out. And there we go. Little itty bitty purple screw there. And our lock bar insert. And get a close look at the way this works. This lock bar insert goes in here. It's going to be another very tight fit. Everything in these Wii knives is machined very closely. But you can see there how it fits in there. You see this little piece down here? That is your over travel stop. Fits in right there. And another thing we can see inside this 604 is the level of detail in the internal milling to lighten that knife up. That is impressive for any knife. And wow, just very well done. It amazes me every time I take apart one of these knives, whether it's a Wii or a Riyadh or even some of the Spydercos and the other brands, at the level of detail that's inside the knives. You know, we know they make good knives. We know they make knives that are close tolerance and all that. But the extra mile they go to is just sometimes well, it just makes you wish everyone paid attention to detail like this. You know, Riot does. You look down in there, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, probably not, but Riot does a lot of the same, and it's just impressive to me that these knife companies are making knives at such a furious pace, yet they're taking the time to get these close tolerances and to make knives that come up square. Whenever you take them apart, put them back together, if you get them back together right, they always come up square, and it's just an unbelievably awesome thing. If you've ever tried to straighten up a Spyderco PM2, or not a current model Hinderer, but some of the older Hinderers, or some of the inexpensive knives, and try to get them square, and get them to go back together right, this new generation of knives, you're just going to love it, because as we'll see here in a moment, these things are going to go back together quite nicely. Alright, I'm just going to wipe everything down. Nothing looks to be in really bad shape, so I'm not even going to try to pull that bearing out of there. I'm just going to wipe it off. And it stuck it down in there good, so we're going to leave it because this knife worked fine before we did anything. But that is a bushing up there against the titanium. And really, you guys probably should see that, so if you guys remember or have seen a Mantra taken apart, or a CRKT Titech, they put little things that look very much like aluminum foil for backing washers. This is what other companies are using, including Riot and others, for their hardened steel washers to back up those bearings. It's a much thicker washer, holds its shape considerably better. Alright guys, I'm going to use just a little bit of acetone to clean up some of the shiny parts. Now, if you're using acetone, be careful of getting it on black blades. It can, I don't know what exactly it does to them, but it can discolor those black blades. I've got a Paramilitary 2 that I didn't really think about it, and I got some acetone on it, and it is, instead of being a nice satin black, it's a very kind of icky flat black anymore. You know, which is not bad. It's still good looking blade. It's just not the way it was supposed to be. And man, whoever did that one got quite a bit of Loctite on there, and that's why we used the acetone, because we wanted to be able to get rid of that Loctite. And there's enough on there that I'm going to have to make me a little acetone bath. And a little much there. And drop that guy in there for a few minutes. Acetone will normally take care of Loctite. Whenever you're dealing with a titanium screw, like we are there, sometimes you're going to have to do this. Hopefully it doesn't discolor anything. We can just get the Loctite off of it. Alright, that's just as good as it's going to get, I suppose. Now, we're not going to put this guy back together with Loctite. I am going to use some stuff called Vibratite VC3. Now, I have not used this extensively enough to give it, you know, the Zelrick seal of approval or anything. But what little I have used it, it seems to be really, really good on pivots. And the difference is, where Loctite is basically somewhat like super glue. It dries up, makes nice hard connection between the threads. That's why that Spyderco tells you, used to tell you on the red Loctite, that they would take the Torx driver and then they'd whack it on the back of the Torx driver with a hammer. That's to break that hard, stiff bond. Well, Vibratite doesn't do that. Vibratite makes kind of a gummy sort of bond, which, you know, sounds awful, but it's down in the thread, so you don't have to worry about it. But to hold things together. Now, the problem comes in, Vibratite takes about a half an hour to do its thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take this little guy here and paint him with some Vibratite. And now that he's painted, let him sit there for a while. We'll go ahead and start assembling the knife. And he's already sticky. Okay, not going to do what I want, are you? Nope, okay. I'll leave him laying there. And we'll also get a little bit of Vibratite down on this lock bar insert screw. Drop just a little bit there, roll it over and a little bit there. Let that guy hang out. Anyhow, it takes about 30 minutes for that Vibratite VC3 to set and be ready to reassemble. So we'll get the rest of the knife assembled, and then we'll go have a martini or something. Or actually, you have a martini. I'll have like a beer or a whiskey. I'm not into martinis. Something to note on all of these wee pivots. See that little edge right there? There's a corresponding little edge right there. So whenever you put one of these together, you want to make sure and get those two edges lined up. If you don't, the knife won't go together right. It's kind of like a D-shaped pivot or whatever. It's just a step there to hold that in place. So we got that in there. Let's put our bearing in. And you always put the bearing on there so that this side of the bearing is facing the knife blade, and that is to help keep things from getting down in the knife. And you see, if we put it in like that, we have the top part of the bearing there showing. If we flop it around the other way, then we have the open end of the bearing out open to the world. We don't like that, so we want to make sure we put it in this way. And we'll lay the blade in there. Stop pin didn't come out. It was in there rather tightly. And, well, I guess we should take the blade back out. I'm going to drop a little bit of Ozark in there. And just like old Nick, I probably over-lubricate. And that's okay. I can wipe it off later. And we'll get the other bearing laying in there the right way. Drop just a little bit of Ozark down in that guy. And that was bad. I probably got a little Ozark down in the pivot screw area, so toothpick time. Actually, I lied to you. It's Q-tip time, because I think a Q-tip will fit down in. Yep. I took the Q-tip, pulled the extra white stuff off of it, and now what we're going to do is get that wet with acetone. And I guess this is a good object lesson. If you get lubricant down in there, acetone will normally get it out and thin it out and make it go away. Once again, be careful with acetone. It can mess with blade finishes, and sometimes it can mess with handle finishes, but not normally. But, you know, test first before you assume that it won't. Anyhow, if there's any left in there. And hopefully that'll get us in good shape. We'll find out if the Vibratite doesn't hold, won't we? And our washer is already in there, so we're going to lay this part of the frame down over that. And line up that little pin in the back. We have the pin here, and we have the stop pin here. And, man, that's snapped in nice and tight. Already locked up. Holy crap. And oh, I forgot to put some Vibratite on this guy, so we need to get a little bit on him. This needs a little bigger screw. And we'll have to stop right there. I'll put the collar in, and I'll be back with you here in just a minute whenever the Vibratite is ready to rock. Alright, so the Vibratite has had time to set. Let's get this thing the rest of the way back together and see what we get. Now, I did put that lock interface, the lock insert in. I completely forgot about that whenever we were messing with it, but it has stayed in place, so we're going to put the little screw down in there and get it started. And there we go. And that's as tight as I'm going to go. Just finger tight on that dude and let the Vibratight do its thing. And we'll get our clip back in here. And do the finger tight thing if I can keep a hold of the little tool. And then back here I am going to go ahead and, I'm not going to crank it down real tight, but get it snug. Put our little collar back on, stick our pivot screw down in there, and go through the same thing here. And there we go. Once everything's down there snug, let's check centering. There we go. But anyhow, that was the inside guts to the WE 604. And as you can see, it's a pretty simple knife, but WE has went to great lengths to lighten the knife, and it's really pretty darn simple. Anyhow, guys, I really appreciate you hanging out with me and getting a look inside the WE 604. And you guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.